All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Women's Growth series. My name is Candace Morris, and I am the Director of Membership here at AIME. And I am joined by the one and only Laura Brandao, President of AFR. So good morning, Laura, and welcome.
Good morning, Candace. So happy to be here with you today.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to have a great conversation specific to here at the Women's Growth Series, talking about our Women's Mortgage Network and specifically the Women's Mortgage Network, WMN's summit at Fuse this past September. So I know that you had a session there and would just love to hear more about that in particular, and just really painting a picture of what the summit was for those women who were unfortunately unable to attend. So why don't you tell us about your session, Designing Your Life? What was that about?
Yes, absolutely. Well, my goodness, the summit was absolutely incredible. And my particular session that I had the joy of moderating was about how we all have the ability to design the life in which we want to achieve. So I was on stage with Margarita Randall from Global Equity. And, I had the privilege of interviewing Margarita probably about a year ago. So we sat down together and we spotlighted her through Women's Mortgage Network to hear her journey in the business. And the thing that really stood out to me from her early career days was the fact that she always raised her hand, meaning that no matter what job was available, no matter what task needed to happen, she always said, count me in. I may not be an expert today, but I can learn it, I can contribute, and I say yes to being part of it. And that really, really resonated to me because when she started her career, she didn't really know what her end game was in terms of what position she wanted, but she did know that if she kept putting herself in the game and she kept showing up and she kept educating herself and being an active participant, she could achieve anything. So we started off there, but then we took it further because it's not just our careers, it's also our personal lives. It's who we want to love, what type of family we want to grow. Where do we see ourselves? And it was funny because Margarita said it first and then I followed up. She mentioned when she wants to retire. And I know literally down to the day I will close out the mortgage industry, down to the day and the year, because I have always believed that I can design my life.
Okay. Love it. And as someone who got to attend that session, I think it was incredibly impactful and you summed it up incredibly well. What do you think would be your highlight moment if you could sum up the summit, and not to sum up the summit? That's a tongue twister right there. To just really share with the women who weren't able to attend, what's a moment that you think of as kind of a hallmark moment of the summit in its entirety?
It's very difficult to pull out one particular thing because I think together, overall, it was phenomenal. So for me, the biggest impact was after the summit. Meaning that as the rest of Fuse went on, I had so many people that I just met in the hallway, people that I've known before, people I didn't know before, that came up and said, my goodness, the impact and the feeling and the getting my mind in a different place from the WMN summit was so impactful. So although that day was incredible and there were so many things and actually I need to go backwards with a story. So that day, that morning, I'm kind of tootling my way along to go and register. And there was a woman just walking by herself in the hallway. And I turned to the woman, I didn't know who she was. And I turned to her and I said, are you going to the Women's Mortgage Network Summit? And she said, I am. And I said, come with me. We're going to go together. And that woman sat at my table. I had a conversation with her. The two, I added more people to our table and we did the getting to know your neighbor. And she was having so much fun, like asking the questions, and she was getting to know all of us, and she was taking all of our information and putting it into her phone. So just that, when you think about meeting fellow women in the industry,
Mhm.
making connections of whether it was old friends and great colleagues or new people that are now in our networks. That's what the summit's about. So it's not one thing, it's everything. It's the
Mhm.
impact. And it's those moments, whether it was before or after, of us coming together.
Mhm. So for those who were unable to attend, we had tables of about 8 to 10 women all across that ballroom. And so could you dive a little bit deeper into what it was like to be at that same table and kind of get to know your neighbor on a very brief level, and then as the summit went on, how it kind of became deeper and deeper? What was that experience like, and what did you learn from being a member of a smaller group?
Yes, and I always love meeting new people. That is a true treasure to me. And it's interesting. I spoke at another conference just this past weekend.
Mm.
And as I was up on a panel of professional women, one of the things that we spoke about is that a lot of times as women, we don't learn how to network.
Mm.
See, gentlemen, a lot of times from a very early age of playing sports or being part of the frat house or playing golf on the fields or being at the board tables, a lot of times as we start our careers, maybe we're starting a family. Maybe we can't attend a lot of events because it's difficult to leave our little ones at home or be able to keep the family together. It's tough when you are starting at that stage in your life. So, as women, sometimes we struggle because a lot of us have a gap of time in our careers that although we may be working in the business world, we may not be able to do the extracurricular activities of networking or
Mhm.
attending things.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that when I started thinking to myself, a lot of times women struggle with networking because they miss that piece for one reason or another. So, by breaking up into small groups and having the ability to have kind of quote icebreakers, right? Icebreakers of finding out what part of the country are you in, or are you an originator, or are you on the ops side, like different questions, it allows people to naturally start a conversation
Mhm.
without having to kind of think, well, how do I speak to this person? And how do I know? And how do I not get intimidated that this person is here and it, we're all here,
Mhm.
all one. But it's difficult to start those conversations. So I really did enjoy the fact of being in a smaller group, having those quote icebreaker questions, and then forming bonds as we're going through the sessions, as we're making comments kind of as follow-ups to each of the sessions, right? And then ultimately our takeaways from the keynote speaker and building your personal brand. All of those things are coming together as the group is bonding more and more as the day is going on.
I love it. As someone who is walking around and kind of hearing from different tables, I was kind of jealous because everyone seemed to be forming these little groups and friendships. And I felt kind of on the outside, and not in a negative way, but
Yeah.
just wishing, like, oh man, I wish I could be here for the long haul and not just for this, smaller portion of a segment. Um, And I know specific to our industry, it is important to be a lifelong learner and to always be willing to learn new tricks and efficiencies and processes and one another. What would be something that you'd say you took away from the WMN Summit? What's something that you learned or have implemented since that time?
Well, there were so many different perspectives, right, to
Mhm.
come from. I mean, I personally love the personal branding because I do believe again, it's something, forget about women. I think as a whole, people struggle with personal branding for one reason or another. And it's very interesting, Candice. And you mentioned about the lifelong learner.
Yeah.
We all every single day have to open our eyes and look at the world from a perspective of what can I learn? Right now, Candice, you and I are learning, right? We're learning together just by having this conversation. And we will be affected by this conversation, right? We will be changed by this conversation. And that's how everyone needs to look at everything. I mean, when I heard Barb Multeri speak about, getting in good health because she went through a health situation and she has seen some people around her, and she said, you know what, you guys see me on Facebook and that working out and taking care of myself, but there's a why behind it, and that why behind it drives me, and it puts me into a mode of, no, I'm going to be on this earth and I'm going to be healthy and I'm going to be able to fulfill my professional and my family needs. And so I needed to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
These women opened up their minds, their hearts, their souls. They shared their inner workings of how they run their business, how they're successful, how they reach their goals, and how they take care of their being. Because without that, the rest of it, no, nothing matters. It doesn't execute. So I think every single section was impactful.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we walk into every event or video or webinar or virtual or whatever we're doing, having that open mind that you're going to come away with something to learn.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree more. For those who weren't able to attend or in the future are watching and kind of making that decision on whether or not to make the effort to attend, because it does require, some pre-planning. It's before Fuse kicks off. It's another day. It's coming into town early, all good things, but it requires a lot of work on the front end, I think, to make it all happen. So what would you say to someone who's on the fence about whether or not to make it to next year's WMN Summit?
Well, I think, we went back to this, right? About, especially if you're at a season of life that it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think at that stage, especially, you need to pre-plan. You need to look at all the different things that are available to you in the industry and decide which things are important for you to put into your schedule, and pre-plan it ahead of time. Whether it's asking, mom and dad to come and take care of the kids during that time, or whether it's hiring someone to help you, whatever it is, whether it's getting that assistance on the LOA side or on your business support, plan it out early and put it into what you're going to do in 2022, because it's the education, it's the bonding, it's the relationships that are going to be formed, because ladies, we know things are going to come up throughout the year. Good, bad, indifferent, all different kinds of things are coming at you. And the reason why back in the day when I was a woman coming up through the mortgage industry, we didn't have anyone to go to. We had to figure it out on our own, and it was difficult. If you're not part of this summit, you're missing out on a component that is going to make it easier for you, for your business and for your personal side. It's not just business, it's everything well-rounded. So I would say pre-plan, no guilt. There's no guilt here, ladies. Okay? No guilt on this. Nowhere, oh, I can't leave, because we are strong, independent women that can figure it out. Buddy up, get within the group and say, hey, ladies, what are your thoughts on how to cover this? What do I do with the dog? How do I get help with the kids? What do I do with my business? How can I get support? I promise you, there are people out there that can give you those recommendations and ideas.
I think that is a fabulous idea of coming to the group and utilizing it truly as a resource for you as a whole person, not just as a businesswoman, and getting all the input and all the help and the support, honestly. Which kind of leads to my last question. Why is WMN so important to have in the industry as a whole?
Yeah, goes back to what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very, very lonely place before Women's Mortgage Network. As women, we are our own worst critic. We have lots of thoughts running through our brains every single day from I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
When you come together with like minded women that understand what a day in your life feels like, they
Yeah.
understand the struggles of this loan is blowing up, this borrower doesn't want to move forward, this realtor is screaming at you for whatever reason. And let's throw in my teenage son or daughter doesn't want to listen to me, and I'm trying to get a handle there while you're trying to take care of your partner. I mean, all of those things used to be all on our shoulders as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Women's Mortgage Network, you're no longer alone.
Yeah.
You're now part of a group that understands what it's like to have the realtor yelling at you why your teenage child isn't listening to you. We all understand those things. There is nothing that you could probably come up with that someone within the group has not also experienced throughout their life. So by being vulnerable and allowing yourself to realize that you're in a group that's safe and only wants to lift you up, you absolutely need to be here because it's vital for your whole entire being.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's powerful to have a whole group of women who can say, I get it,
That's
who
right.
whatever it is, I get it. And it's a safe spot and it's ever growing. And so I would encourage anyone listening to this today, tomorrow, sometime soon to invite other women to be a part of this, your coworkers, and other women who can impact this channel, but specifically this group. So, Laura, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I think you did an incredible job at the summit, but an even greater job here to be able to say exactly what we just talked about, that you get it and you understand and you have leveraged your leadership in such an impactful way to be willing to share it with this group. So thank you for all of your insight and helpfulness today, and I'm sure in the future, and for all things WMN. As someone who has benefited from the group, thank you for leading the charge and spearheading things and being willing to hop on these women's growth series, that will live on for a really, really long time.
Always a pleasure. And ladies, just remember, you're not alone. We've got you. And there are absolutely no limits to what you can do.
Ditto. Ditto, retweet, yes. For those watching the Women's Growth Series, if you want to catch up on more, definitely feel free to check out AIME's YouTube channel. It's under AIME National. You can watch all the current and past Women's Growth Series, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode. We'll see you soon.